Hi, this is Dan Bullard, retired electronics engineer, sitting on the front deck of my houseboat again. It's January 26th. I've been married 44 years in a week. So, and it was a summertime wedding. I think I mentioned that. I want to talk about this thing that I was trying to do with the distortion moving from one side of the wave to the other. I wrote an article on it, I did a video on it, and I tried to challenge you guys to do it, to try it. So far, no takers, 3 weeks. I went and found, in the article, I published the article in May of 2021, and I found the file. So I have the Excel file, and I can give it to you. All you got to do is email me, dan@danbullard.com. You can do a message on this video, and I will send you the file. I'll zip it up and send it to you. I guarantee you there's no viruses or anything in it. It's pretty cool, and the way I did it was, if you look at this, I do these things where I have, people are hunting out there, so just ignore that. That's not explosions yet. I have this one variable that lets me flip the phases of the even harmonics. That's all you have to do. Just flip the phases of the even harmonics 180 degrees. And so I use the mod function, and basically I take whatever the phase is, add 180, and then I do a mod function on it to make sure it doesn't go over 360. And it works great. So I just have this one variable. I do a -1 to flip the phases, +1 doesn't flip the phases, and that does all the even harmonics. Now, what I challenge you to do is to do, you know, some number of harmonics like I did in the video. And again, you know, what you do is you do the inverse FFT. You flip the harmonic, the even harmonics. You do an inverse FFT. You take a picture of it. You go and flip some more even harmonics. Do the inverse FFT. Take a picture of it, and capture all these pictures, and then you make an animated GIF. And if you use Graphic Converter, which is what I use on my Mac, you can save that animated GIF as a movie file and put it into iMovie. So, you know, I've got this down. You have to admit, I do a great job. Okay, so just email me, dan@danbullard.com, or comment on the video and let me know where I can send this zip file to you. And then you can play with it yourself. It's really kind of fun. I mean, I really got a kick out of doing Excel. And I wish I had Excel, but then again, you know, my vision's not going to win me any awards, so I probably can't do anything with it. I also want to mention I don't hate people with degrees. I really don't. I just sound like that. But these guys at Caltech, you know, he's being a jerk, you know. Oh, you're being arrogant. Well, you're being stupid. So, but I don't have, you know, extreme hate for any of these people. When I was working for Credence in 1997, and I'll tell you how I know that was the year. 1997, my boss, Mick Francetic, got me and a co-worker, Tricia Justice, and I checked if she's okay with me saying her name. So me and Tricia Justice were given a trip down to LA to go to UCLA Extension for 1 week. We went for 1 week, and they were going to have a guest lecturer there talk about DSP. So Mick was being a great guy. He's always been a great guy. He sent us to UCLA to take a class on DSP. Now, I was already an expert at DSP. Tricia wasn't, and I don't really know where that went from there. But she went to class with me, and we partnered together. So we sat in class together for the whole week. we were actually staying at the same place, not in the same room. We stayed at a bed and breakfast down in LA, and we would walk. We didn't even have a rental car, so we took a taxi from the airport to the bed and breakfast. That was a nice one. And then we would walk to the campus every morning to go to school, and it was really cool. I really loved it. And my wife was a little bit jealous because I was hanging out with Tricia, because, you know, from her picture you can tell she's quite a doll. So, but, you know, nothing ever happened, you know, but my wife was concerned. Tricia's a good friend, that's all. And she's kind of fun, and she was a very skillful applications engineer. She wrote the first Shmoo plot for the Vista Vision, Vista Duo, Vista, all the Vista variants of the tester. She wrote the first Shmoo plot. Shmoo plots are super important. You can't do automatic tests without Shmoo plots. So Tricia did that for the company and made the company, and then became a senior applications engineer for Credence. And so Mick was trying to take care of Tricia and me by sending us both down to UCLA. So Tricia and I were staying at this bed and breakfast, but their idea of breakfast was pretty miserable. So we found a place between the bed and breakfast and UCLA. It was a great restaurant. It had a huge menu, giant menu. So we went there for breakfast, and I was going through the menu, and they had kippers and eggs. Now, I told you I did a training class in Southampton for Philips, and in Southampton I stayed at this hotel, and they had kippers and eggs for breakfast. You could get, you know, eggs and bacon and stuff like that, but, you know, the standard American breakfast, bacon and eggs, is not the standard all over the world. And so, in fact, in Germany, I had to ask for eggs specifically if I wanted them. But down there, they had kippers and eggs. And so I ordered them, and Tricia's sitting there across the table from me. And the guy comes out, and he says, everybody in the kitchen's complaining because of your kippers. Because they stink like hell. They're fish, right? They stink. And so he brought them out and set them in front of me, and Tricia says, well, you're really lucky I didn't get up and leave. That thing stinks. So I ate them, and they were great, but I promised Tricia I wouldn't do it again because they stink so much, and I don't want to piss off the people in the kitchen because they're cooking my food. I don't want to make them mad. But I love kippers and eggs. Kippers and eggs are great. They're ugly, but they're great. And so we were going to this class, and through the mixed signal class, this guy from Glasgow, he was working at the University of Glasgow, and I told you when I worked for Next Test, I ended up going to Glasgow, and I ran into my travel agent on the plane. She had a business class seat, and I'm like, hey, can you get me an upgrade? It was too late for that, but it was okay. So I've been to Glasgow, and this professor he was a really nice guy. I don't even remember his name, but they had a little snafu. He had to bring his laptop to do this class. This is in 97. And how do I know it was 97? Because in 1997, the movie Contact was released. And as we walked from the bed and breakfast to UCLA, there was a billboard under construction for the movie Contact. And it looked like this, except they also extended the billboard up so they could have a big picture of the radio dish. So they had the radio dish, giant billboard. It was great. So it was big anticipation for the movie Contact. So that was 1997 that movie came out. So we were down there for the movie release, which we didn't go see it because we were busy going to class, you know. So we went to this class after having breakfast, kippers and eggs one morning. And it was kind of fun, except I pretty much knew everything the professor was telling us. He was a nice guy, but like I said, they had a bit of a snafu. He gave them UCLA people his laptop so they could connect him to the internet. Well, in the process, they deleted a whole bunch of his files that he intended to use during the training class. And he was furious. And he admitted to us that it was an affirmative action hire that did this, accidentally deleted his file. So he couldn't go all the way back to Glasgow, and the internet wasn't quite up to this task of downloading files from Glasgow to LA. So he had to do the class without a lot of the files that he had developed for us. But one of the files was really useful. The topic of dither came up, and he wanted to explain dither to us. So he took an audio file, and he said, this one's coded for 16 bits, and he played it for us. And yeah, 16 bits sounded good. It was a music or something. And then he says, so, okay, now here it is at 12 bits. And he played it, and it's, you know, it was a little bit compromised, but you could hear it. And then he said, now I'm going to knock it down to 8 bits. And so he played that, and yeah, you could definitely tell the quality wasn't there. CB quality, I call it. There's CD quality, which is 16 bits, and CB quality, which is 8 bits or less. And he said, now, what do you think about 4 bits? Really, it'll sound pretty bad. So he played it, and yes, it sounded pretty bad, 4 bits. And then he knocked it down to 1 bit. Now think about what 1 bit might sound like. And it sounded really terrible. And then he said, now, here's 1 bit with some noise added into it. And rather than making it worse, it actually made it better. It sounded better. That's dither. Dither makes 1-bit audio sound better than 1-bit audio without dither. So dither, it was a great lesson. He did a good job. He did a really good job. But, you know, for me, it was like 97, I already knew DSP pretty good. I knew FFTs and all that stuff. You know, but me and Tricia went through the labs and we did everything, and it was an interesting class. He kind of lost me when it got into filters and stuff, but I learned filters on my own later, so it was okay. And then he mentioned, you know, it's time for open questions. Anybody have any questions? And, you know, I had more than a question. I said, so you talked about windowing, and I've mentioned windowing. Windowing is a big deal for spectrum analyzers and scopes because they can't do coherent capture. So windowing is a big deal, but not for an Applicos or an Audio Precision or Next Test or Credence Vista or Duo, Quartet, Teradyne, A5. You don't have to do windowing for those because they can do coherent capture. But for non-coherent capture, like spectrum analyzers and scopes, you got to do windowing. So how do you do windowing? You have to do, number one, he knew a lot about windowing, but he didn't know this one fact. You must remove the DC before you window. You must. If you don't remove the DC, then the DC smears, and that's a disaster because all the low frequencies show up that weren't there before in the original signal. So the DC gets smeared, so you must remove the DC before your window. That's a must. Now, with a lot of scopes, you'll put it in AC mode, and that'll get rid of the DC, so you'll never even notice. But back in '97, a lot of people didn't know that, and he didn't know that. This is a professor visiting from Glasgow. So not everybody in LA is an idiot. These guys at UCLA, and that includes Feynman, they don't know how harmonics work. Oh, interesting fact, Tricia, she ended up leaving Credence at some point, and now she works for, guess who? Harmonic. She worked for a company named Harmonic. So it's almost like, you know, juxtaposition again. Tricia and I are in the same business, except the stuff that she does really doesn't have anything to do with harmonics. And I can't talk about harmonics to a lot of people. I talked to a gal who's an acquaintance from the Philippines, and she says, "Oh, You know how to play the harmonica? No. And that's really awful. I don't know how to play a harmonica. I'm talking about harmonics. I developed 6 laws of physics related to harmonics. Nobody else knows them. Nobody. And neither do the people at Harmonic, but that's okay. They don't really do anything with analog. And that's one reason I worry about this, because analog is pretty much toast. It's gone. And so nobody cares about harmonics anymore, because analog is gone. Even the microphones these days are digital. So nobody cares about harmonics, but I do. I very much think harmonics are great. But that's because I discovered something nobody else, including Richard Feynman, nobody else understands. The guys at UCLA, they probably don't know. And the guys at Caltech, they definitely don't know. The guys at MIT, they don't know. Stanford, they don't know. None of them know any of these things. If you follow my lead, you'll be smarter than the people at MIT and Caltech, I guarantee it. You'll be smarter than Sheldon and Leonard. Anyway, so I had a good time with Tricia. I didn't fool around with Tricia. Tricia wouldn't do that. Me and Tricia are friends. That's it. But it was a fun time, and you know, my boss, Mick Francetic, he sent us down there for a week. We didn't have a car. All we did was we went between the bed and breakfast to the restaurant, to UCLA, back to the restaurant for dinner, and you know, watch TV and stuff like that. We didn't even hang out. So, but Tricia and I are good friends. That's about it. And I really appreciate Tricia. You know, in this business, in electronics, there's not a lot of really good women in electronics, but Tricia's one of the better ones. She's much better than most, much better. She's better than a lot of guys, and that's saying a lot. So, thank you, Tricia. It was a good time. She didn't remember it, but I thought the Kippers would stick in her mind, but apparently not. So, anyway, Tricia, good person, really good person. And if you need to do streaming, talk to Tricia. Okay, so once again, from the river, this is Dan Bullard.